He's actually hired a crisis PR person in LA who worked with Amber Heard's team. And I don't know. So here's the thing. As crappy as this may have been, I got to say, the feud at the end of the day is probably going to drive a lot more interest into this movie, right?
Yeah.
If they're true, like them feuding right now, because this one doesn't scream to me as a fake feud, which I feel like happens a lot of days where people try to strum up publicity.
Welcome to the Hollywood Raw Podcast, Raw Rundown, the number 19 entertainment news podcast in the country. Thank you for listening. How are you, Dax?
I'm good. The best part is someone that's never listened, they're like, oh, wow, 19, that's good. We're definitely not 19. We're way higher than that, but it's still funny.
Yeah. It's like, what? Yeah, these guys are bragging that they're number 19. No, we're very much higher. We have a very good audience. And if you're listening, I appreciate listening, but people don't realize, I don't want the numbers, we're getting 6-figure downloads a month, it's pretty incredible what we're doing and what this podcast has turned into. If you're new to this podcast, what we do is in the middle of the week, we either, Dax and I either kind of, we gossip between the two of us. Maybe we
ramble.
Shoot the
Sometimes
shit.
we ramble.
We yenta between the two of each other. And then on Fridays, we release the Raw Rundown, which is the top 10 stories of the week. How do we decide the top 10 stories? It goes by the Google search, it goes by the data, and lastly, it goes by our personal opinions. But ultimately, it comes down to the Google search. Just like any major news outlet, they're looking to see what people are clicking on, and then they dive down more into those stories. They're kind of trying to feed the monster. And we kind of look into the Google search. Dax, you doing well, my friend?
I'm doing well. I'm sorry. I'm just hoarding it up over here. No sleeves for you on this Raw Rundown. So I apologize if you have to look at so much skin on my side of the camera here.
No, you're pleasing a lot of the women fans, some of the male fans, some of the confused fans. Look at me. I just got out of the shower. I'm wearing a white collared shirt. I look like just
fancy.
Dude, I look like I just walked out of Mar-a-Lago. Mar-a-Lago. I look so conservative right now. I look like a young George Washington if you're looking at me on Red Coral. Dax, before we get to Raw Rundown, we read reviews. We read them because we love them. And the best way to support this podcast is giving us a review. How do you do that, Dax? How would you give people advice on how to give us a review?
It is super easy. Head on over to Apple Podcasts, find our show, scroll to the very bottom, and there it says leave a review. You push 5 stars, you enter your review, you push submit, and then you immediately grab your partner's phone and do the same thing. Push submit. Then you immediately grab your mom's phone, do the same thing, your dad's phone, anyone else around you, the stranger walking down the street, grab their phone, leave a review. It is that simple. And so let's read one that was left recently. This one is by Brooke Pillard, maybe we'll go with. 5 stars. The title is Great Guests and Relevant Topics. It says, Dax and Adam have so many cool stories about celebs. They also have great guests regularly that other people don't have. Their dynamic is great, and they both bring interesting perspectives. Definitely a great listen, and I love that there are 2 a week. Hell yeah. Thank you, Brooke. Great review. Appreciate it. Love the 5 stars. You made my ego go bigger today, Adam.
Yes, me. You kept it the same because my ego is already so big. It can only get. I feel like it's reached its plateau, and I don't know how much.
How much more we can handle?
Yeah. All right. When we first started doing the Raw Rundown, we're like, let's do these Friday 20-minute episodes. They went to an hour, and we always try to say, let's try to bang it real quick because we just want to give you all the information so you know everything that's going on in the weekend, get you all the points, give us our personal opinion, our personal take, get you in, out so you can enjoy your weekend. Yeah. So let's get to the Raw Rundown, Dax, starting with number 10.
Number 10, Dr. Dre. He wants to actually compete in the next Olympics. And what you asking? Archery. So he is saying that in the 2028 Olympics, he wants to win gold, and he is quote unquote dead ass serious. So he was doing an interview with Entertainment Tonight and told the interviewer, look, I've done archery for a long time. It's kind of just been a side hobby, but after watching the Olympics, he got kind of inspired, and he goes, now I'm trying out for the Olympics in 2028. And he said, I'm dead ass serious. So he said he started playing around with archery in junior high, but eventually stopped for a while, because he was rapping and making headphones and making $1 bazillion. And then he said that his son bought him a setup, and he goes, I don't know if it was on my birthday or Father's Day or something like that, but he has it set up in his backyard. And he said that he heard qualifying for the Olympics is 77 feet. And he goes, I practice at 90. So he said, wouldn't it be interesting to go to the Olympics, especially here in LA, and win a gold medal? He goes, I feel like I could do anything. I am here for Dr. Dre being a part of archery in the Olympics. Wouldn't that be awesome?
It would be so cool. Personally, I'll say this, and this has nothing to do with it. I've met Dr. Dre. I shouldn't say I've met him, not like he knows who I am, but I've been around him. I've got a photo with him. I was almost like intimidated by him just because I grew up on the guy, from NWA to the Chronic to everything he's done. I was like, man, this guy, because he was a gangster rapper, but he's turned into a businessman. And I got to be honest with you, when you meet him, very, very cool, nice guy, like just a nice person. And for him to even say this, I think it's not like archery needed to be cool, but it legitimized archery. And it's cool that he does. And I know people talk about archery and how good it is for the mind and for the body.
I'm
and
sorry,
so
but
present.
Katniss Everdeen made archery cool, not Dr. Dre.
Joe Rogan, if you want to get official, made archery cool. I mean, that's all, any single alpha male out there. But I think it's just really cool that he kind of made this. I think he's serious. I think he's like, no, I would love to kind of compete and see how well I could do with the best of the world. And him doing,
but you know what it is
great.
A lot of training comes with, if you have the money to really get the proper training and really hone in on your sport. The dude has endless cash, so he could get all the best trainers, or whatever you would call coaches or whatever, in archery, and spend the next 4 years like really pushing hard. I think he could easily make it. Spend 4 years to do it. I think he could do it.
Yeah, I think he could definitely do it. Again, he's probably good, but I'm sure there's some other people that are just incredible at it. So with that said, I'm sure Dr. Dre practices a lot, but there's been someone who didn't put the bow and arrow down for a couple of years for the rap career, who's just been doing it ever since they got out of the womb pretty much. So it's going to be tough. However, I will follow his archery career. I wish him the best. I think it's really exciting. I do think with the Olympics coming to LA, based on what happened this year, it's going to be celebrity overload, influencer overload when it comes to.
Do you remember, Adam, when we were doing, I think, a Raw rundown about 2 weeks ago, you asked me about the Olympics, and I was like, not excited as I've been in past years. Don't know why, just don't care. I feel like all of that switched around. I became super fan of the Olympics. Immediately the biggest patriot on the planet. Every sport that the USA was in, I was jumping up and down on my couch, whether I've even heard of the sport. It's funny how the Olympics brings that out of you.
I still was, what I said before and what I say, I really didn't care for the Olympics. I watched if they were on, but I wasn't like, oh my God, so excited rooting for it. I do know this year's, so the Olympic ratings have gone down every single year, except this year they actually went up. The reason went up, at least on the East Coast, Dax, and I'm sure with you guys as well, you were able to watch the events live here. In the East Coast, it was kind of appearing in the afternoon live. So in the afternoon, the ratings were actually pretty high, but at night, the ratings went down because people already knew what happened in the events. They knew who won, who lost. They kind of knew it was just replayed. But when the Olympics are sort of live, especially now, it makes a big difference. I do think the Olympics will do very well in the ratings once they're in LA, just because of the time it's in America. So people are going to be more excited. I think LA will be insane for it. So I'm excited I will be into when the Olympics go to LA, because it's just going to be kind of cool.
You're going to have the US excited because they're being held here in the US in general. So, all right, let's move on.
Celebrities excited. They'll all be there trying to get their photos taken, like they know each gymnast. Dax, number 9.
We got a couple sad deaths this week that we need to talk about, but Gena Rollins, you know her from the star of The Notebook. She was the woman who played Allie, the late version of Allie when she was in the old folks' home in the movie, and she passed away at her home in Indian Wells this week. She was surrounded by her family, her husband, her her daughter. And I didn't realize this. Her son is actually Nick Cassavetes, who was the director of The Notebook, and he cast his mom in The Notebook as Allie. And I just thought that was really interesting. I was reading, I had no idea that that was the case until this week, but she died at the age of 94. So long life. What was really the other interesting fact here was that she dealt with Alzheimer's disease, which, if you remember, Allie dealt with in the movie. And so it was a really interesting connection. And I guess at the 20th year reunion of the movie, he talked about his mother dealing with Alzheimer's and wanted to really like put an emphasis on, foundations and other things that can raise money, because it's a pretty awful disease where you lose your loved ones. They're there, but they don't remember you. They don't remember anything. And it just sounds like such a heartbreaking disease to have to go through.
Yeah. Rest in peace. She was great. I knew her work from The Notebook, and she was like one of those roles in The Notebook. I'm sure she's done plenty of other roles. I know her from The Notebook, specifically in The Notebook. It was a small-ish part, but the part she would come in, she was very good at it,
Yeah.
But interesting story. Rest in peace.
And then we do need to mention one other, Angel Salazar, who was in Scarface. He also passed away this week at the age of 68. He was, Al Pacino's sidekick, Chi-Chi, in the 1983 movie. He died. I guess he passed away in his sleep over the weekend, according to one of his representatives that confirmed to Deadline. And I just wanted to, I guess he had suffered from heart issues, and he's got just a ton of acting credits. He was acting for 45 years. So, I could go on and on and on with all of his movies, but I would feel most people know him from Scarface. So I just want to mention those two because they're, pretty well-known famous faces in Hollywood that passed away this week.
Dax, were you a big Scarface guy?
Not really. I think it was like right around the time I was born. Obviously I've always known about Scarface. It's always been a big movie in my whole life, but no, not really.
Yeah, I guess the movie was big. It was huge at its time, but when I was like 14, 15, and again, very into rap, there was a period of my life where me and my friends would always have Scarface on in the background. It was just like, we thought we were cool just always having Scarface in the background. A lot of rappers were referencing the movie, kind of had its, I don't know. It was a great movie. It was a huge movie at its time. I wasn't around at the time, but I'm sure it's a huge movie at that time. And it's definitely, gangster stories do well. So rest in peace, Angel, as well. Dax, number 8.
The Bachelor did a weird move this week, and they actually announced their upcoming Bachelor in the middle of the Bachelorette season. And people are like, wait, what just happened? Normally they wait until the end of the season, and then during the reunion show, they'll announce who the next Bachelor or Bachelorette is. Well, they're right in the middle of Jen Tran's season. And basically Grant Ellis, who was one of the contestants, they announced it right as he was getting kicked off the show. So for a lot of people, they found out that he was going to be the Bachelor before even seeing him getting kicked off her season. And they were like, cool, well, thanks for ruining this. Now I know that he didn't make it. But they are saying over at ABC, the reason that they announced it so early is they want to give people a chance, all the women out there that would like to date him, they want to give them a chance to actually get in their applications for the show. Because if they do it any later, this has been a big controversy for many years, is you apply for the show and you don't know who the person is. And they're saying, okay, let's try to move it forward. You know who the person is, now apply because you actually want to have a love connection with that main person. So anyway, interesting move. Doesn't mean I'm going to watch it, but an interesting move nonetheless.
I don't know. I think that was a fuck up on their end. Stupid move. Yeah, I think you guys got to. This is what a show. This is how. When you do a show like this is part of how the show's made. I don't think it was worth releasing. Who's going to be the next Bachelor? I think there's more suspense the way they used to do it. Doing it like this is okay. So now I don't have to keep watching to see who's going to keep going down to become the next
but
Bachelor,
he was already kicked off. He was kicked off earlier, so he was already out of the running. But the other thing is, like you said, a lot of times it's someone further in the season that they choose because they've given the the cast someone to fall in love with that then gets kicked off, and they're like, okay, that person has a big following now. My question here is, I wonder if this news was going to break somehow. Like there was a news outlet that had reached out to ABC and said, we know he is the next Bachelor. We're going to break this news. And they said, crap, we can't let someone else break it. Let's just break it ourselves and get it out there.
Yeah. I guess so. I guess it was going to break out there. They're trying to get ahead of it. But there's always like there's what's that reality Steve who sort of breaks this stuff a lot on those shows and who wins, who doesn't. I don't know what they could have done. I think they could have waited. I get it and I don't get it. As far as the show goes, I'm sort of over The Bachelor in general. I'm just
good. Let's move on.
Sounds good. Number 7. That easy.
So Pras and Lauryn Hill, their feud is continuing. As you know, the Fuji's anniversary tour is no longer happening. There was a lot of complaints. Lauryn Hill was showing up ridiculously late to different sets, and Pras has kind of famously gone out and gone after her, been like, look, all your fans want is to see you, and they paid a lot of money, and they want to see you show up on time, put on a good performance, but when you show up 3 hours late to a venue, like you piss a lot of people off, but not only that, you also piss off your other bandmates who have shown up on time and are ready to go. I can see that being very frustrating. It's probably the reason a lot of bands break up is if you have one member who is kind of constantly screwing it up for the rest of them. Well, he is now recording a diss track towards her called Bar Mitzvah. Yeah, that's how it's spelled differently than a normal bar mitzvah, so I had to sound it out a little bit. But basically, he did a little tease to it on his Instagram stories where, he's basically saying, clickbait beefs, your salary, how many Gucci bags you owned, bogus excuses. And he just is starting to go in on her. So I'm very curious to see how this ends up. I don't think Pras has anything to lose out. He already is one of the founding members of the Fugees. He's made a ton of money. Any other licensing and all of that, he makes a ton of cash. So I think at this point, he does not care if the Fugees never work together ever again. And he is going to 100% blame Lauryn Hill and her diva-like ways for everything kind of falling apart.
Yeah. There were some rumors that, I guess it was Lauren who's kind of releasing the stories that the reason why the tour was canceled, it was just because of low ticket sales. I think he's
blaming her. He's like, people would buy tickets if you actually showed up to concerts. But when you start getting terrible press around the country about how you don't show up, why would anyone want to buy tickets to your show? I
actually saw Lauryn Hill recently. I was near the Four Seasons Hotel and she came out. Dax, I gotta be honest with you, it was the first time in a while I was like kind of starstruck a little bit.
Dude, listen.
It was like, whoa, Lauryn Hill. She's like rare. Yeah. I was like, whoa, that's cool. Like, I don't know. She's I don't know. She's great album. Fuji's great album. Her Miseducation, Lauryn Hill, still a classic. I know she does do shows right now. Dude, that was such a good album. And they got to do a documentary on Lauryn Hill. Like, what's the deal here? What is the deal? How, like you said, though, I'm curious how this ends up. Are they able to put away their differences to kind of go on tour? We do know Pras also needs, Dax, the other thing is Pras also needs this. He's had some financial struggles.
He's so rich.
Is he so rich? I thought he had financial struggles. So I don't know.
I think he's just fine. I don't think he's going to go out and trash the leading member of his band at this point if he did not just say, I don't care anymore.
Yeah. All right. Dax, number 6.
All right. Number 6, Jojo Siwa, claiming that Nickelodeon actually blackballed her back in the day after she came out. And she is very open about this. So basically, she is doing a new Hulu documentary titled Child Star. This is the one that is being directed by Demi Lovato. Demi is, I guess, working on this project. And so little clippets are coming out where JoJo is talking about her conversation that she had with the Nickelodeon president back in the day, Brian Robbins, and said, he goes, what are you going to tell the kids? And apparently she said, I'm going to tell them that I'm happy. And that Nickelodeon apparently was not happy with her revealing her sexuality, and that, you know, you have a line at Target, you have a line at Claire's. You know, what are we going to tell these partnerships? You need to reach out to them and tell them that you're not going crazy. And she goes, yeah, but I want to be happy. Like, I don't want to hide who I am because other people are concerned about it. Like, I want to be happy. Well, Nickelodeon is coming out and they're saying, no, we've had a great relationship. This is not true, that we have supported her throughout her entire life, and that her time with Nickelodeon, and that we've even done collaborations with LGBTQ collaborations with her. So this is not true. But the interesting thing is, she goes, you know, that was the year that I didn't get invited to the Nickelodeon award show. What was it? Is it Teen Choice? No, Nickelodeon what? The hell is a Nickelodeon show?
Teen Choice Awards, or
yeah, I think whatever it is. Yeah, Kids Choice Awards.
Kids Choice. Yeah.
And she's like, I didn't get invited. And if you remember back then, she actually posted, because everyone noticed she wasn't there, and she was a huge Nickelodeon star at the time. And she goes, I wasn't there, but it's not because I didn't want to. I didn't get an invite. So this started years ago, her saying that Nickelodeon kind of like screwed her over, and the second she came out, they kind of threw her away. Either way, I'm very interested to see this new documentary. Not necessarily that one, but it's going to be, I think, a lot of child stars that are going to be appearing on it. I mean, if Demi Lovato is behind this, then I think we're going to get a lot of really interesting stories, because first, I have some fascination with child stars because they grow up in such a different, weird world than normal kids. And I think it really tweaks them a little bit. But I know there's going to be one on Drew Barrymore, Kenan Thompson, Christina Ricci, Raven Simone. So I think this is going to be fascinating.
Do you think it was interesting that Nickelodeon didn't stay quiet on this? They kind of spoke pretty quick regarding this situation?
Yeah, because her allegations are very homophobic on their part. So I think they have to. You can't stay quiet if you know, a huge personality is saying that you turned your back on her because she came out as gay. Like that looks really bad on a network that is devoted towards children and family and all of that.
Yeah. Yeah. There's Nickelodeon's side. There's her side. Obviously, there is some miscommunication. Obviously, Jojo wanted to be happy and she thought she could stay there. Nickelodeon's like, hey, we're also a business, so you know, you have to understand our side, but not everyone's happy here. And it's not good for Nickelodeon, I'll tell you that. Like, that's stuff you don't want to be
associated with.
With. I get, like, no, when I say not associated with, not just with JoJo's news, it's just when she kind of releases her story, that's yikes, not good. And I know you're a huge JoJo fan, Dax, so I know that it probably affected you personally. So Dax calls me one day. He's like, hey, I just had to get this off my chest. I don't know what JoJo's doing. Like, this is absolutely insane. And then just like kind of like goes off on JoJo, and then he's, all right, enjoy your Saturday. And I was like, okay, Dax, thank you so much. I was like, thank you for your rant on JoJo.
It's the over the top ridiculous costumes and face paint that I'm like, why are you trying so hard?
Cringe
like, stop with the trying so hard. Yeah. I feel like she is an extremely talented person. Like, she's done very well in her life with like Dance Moms, and then this crazy successful bow line that she has. I just have a hard time with this latest phase of like over the topness that I'm like, just sing, do your stuff. But, like, when you're walking down the street, you don't need to be in full attire. I get that for a stage performance, but when you're at Disneyland, you don't need to be with face paint on. It's just weird, in my opinion.
It is weird, but we're at a time now that cringe is in, and this is show business. And one of my favorite people to follow on social media, like their clips keep popping on and I always watch it, is Corey Feldman. I love watching Corey Feldman perform. It's so cringeworthy, but it's so funny and entertaining to watch. In fact, he was opening up for Limp Bizkit. They're on this, I think it's called the Loser Tour. And I think the doors open at 6. Corey Feldman goes on directly at 6 for like 30 minutes and performs. And people go there to see Corey. And then they just go, Corey. And they sort of egg him on. And the performance is so, I mean, it's not great, but it's so fun to watch that sort of like JoJo. Like you don't really like it, but you're just into it. So cringe is in. Dax, the next story. I know what number. We're on the VMA story. What number is this?
This is number, I don't know, 5.
5. VMAs. What's going on with the VMAs?
The VMAs, don't worry. For all those people that were concerned about trying to watch the VMAs and the latest presidential debate hitting on the same night, all is good. MTV has decided to go ahead and move the VMAs one night later. So if you know, the presidential debate is coming up on September 10th. It'll be Kamala versus Donald. And everyone was like, well, what do we do with VMAs now? Well, they pushed them to September 11th. And so you will now get to see everything you want to watch. And they're encouraging their MTV is actually encouraging their fans to tune in, watch the debate show ahead of the award show. I wonder how, though, that affects performances, because these celebrities have very tight schedules. And if they've had the VMAs on their calendar for the last year, and then they know, okay, I got to perform that night, then I leave and I go somewhere else, that's a little risky, right? Well, I don't know how it's going to pan out, but I know that they've got Sabrina Carpenter performing. They got Camila Cabello, Glorilla. They've got a bunch of people, but I don't know if anyone now has to back out if they're changing the date, because that could be pretty interesting.
Yeah, so remember like remember the VMAs used to be like Radio City Music Hall, and it was like their performances right on top of the banner of Radio City. It was like iconic. Then they did, I think it was Lincoln Center, iconic. And it's funny, they're getting like worse and worse venues. And then they moved to Jersey, and it was like in Newark. And you didn't actually it's funny, like you didn't even know what was going on. Like, oh, the VMAs are going on. Like nobody cared. And this year now they're in Long Island, deep into Long Island.
It's not the same. MTV used to be a powerhouse when there was no streaming services and all that. It was people watched cable, and MTV was one of those cable channels you would 100% go to, especially for the younger demographic.
Yeah, I mean, it's just as far as performing doing the gig on 9/11, I'm telling you, you couldn't find one other day to do it. And I get it. The DNC, what is it? There's a debate going on that day. You don't want to compete against the debate, but I mean, this is what you got to do. It sucks, but this is, I don't know. I think 9/11 is still a weird date. I know they're going to honor New York, but you're doing it in Long Island. So it's one thing if you're doing it in New York City, but the whole thing's just weird to me. But bottom line is the VMAs, I get it if you're a performer and you want to kind of showcase your new song because it's just a commercial. Other than that, I'd be curious what the ratings are. I think people just watch the clips of it on social media the next day. So, that's it. Dax, number 4.
George Clooney going after Tarantino, dragging the director. Well, actually, he went after 2 directors. This was kind of interesting, but George Clooney and Brad Pitt sat down for a GQ interview, kind of like the Hollywood best friends sitting down because they got this new action comedy coming out called Wolves. And anyway, they were talking all about their careers, and they got into the topic of Tarantino, because if you remember, Tarantino was Clooney's co-star in From Dusk Till Dawn. And I guess, I don't remember this, but apparently this happened. Tarantino took a jab at Clooney at some point. He said that basically, let me get the exact quote. He was naming movie stars, and he was talking about Brad Pitt and someone else. And then the interviewer goes, well, what about George? And Tarantino's response, well, he's not a movie star. And then he said, name a movie star since the millennium. And I'm thinking, that's a pretty big diss to George Clooney, who has 2 Oscars, a bunch of Golden Globes, Emmys. Like, the guy is a pretty successful person. And Clooney actually took pretty big offense to it. He goes, my whole career has been in this millennium. Like, what are you talking about? And so he took offense to that. And if you remember, Brad Pitt, who is sitting right next to him, is really good friends with Tarantino. He's done numerous projects with Tarantino. So I got to imagine that was really awkward for Pitt, but he wasn't the only person that he went on. He went on to kind of diss director David O. Russell, saying that he's just a miserable person. And so he had directed Good Night and Good Luck. And I guess 3 Kings was the movie that Clooney was in, that David O. Russell directed. And he said that, you know, working 5 months out of your life with someone who is miserable is not what I want to do. It was hell working with this guy. And he goes, now I just value my time a little different. If it is a great movie, awesome. But if I have to work with someone miserable, I won't do it at this point, no matter how great the movie is. So kind of a rare interview from Clooney, who is normally, I feel like, pretty PC. He doesn't talk shit on people, but he was not holding back. Maybe, again, he is at that point in his career, he doesn't care about talking shit on people at this, you know?
Great interview. I'm excited for this movie that George Clooney's doing with Brad Pitt. They're filming it in New York City. You haven't really, I mean, but regarding Quentin Tarantino's comments, George Clooney, Dax, what would you say the movies he was best in?
Clooney?
Yeah.
I mean, I loved Ocean's 11, but I'm not
Ocean's 11. The Oceans was, I guess, a big success. They did Ocean's 12 and I guess a 13.
But you want in because he was behind Argo, so that. But he wasn't. I don't remember him being in it. I remember him being behind the scenes in that one and being an executive producer on it. And that was
Once Upon a Time. Movie. Oh no, Up in the Air. He was in Up in the Air. But it's funny because George Clooney's had this. He's had a very good movie. You'd like that. But he's had a very unique career because when you think of George Clooney, obviously ER put him on the map, and it was just timing with him too, because he hasn't done a whole lot. He's done a lot, but not like a whole lot. And we treat him like this ultimate huge star. But like work-wise, like he hasn't really done
had a big career though.
He's had a good career, but not like how many classics, for what kind of celebrity he is. What has he done that's been so memorable? Let's think it. Ocean's 11. Okay.
What about Batman and Robin, bro?
Yeah, but that was not. Yes, he played Batman, but everyone says he was a Batman we want to forget. Like he wasn't a memorable Batman. So it's just he's had a very unique career, and I think some people.
The American was. I remember the American that did pretty good. God, what else has he done? Gravity.
Exactly. You can't think of anything.
Gravity was good.
Gravity was fine. Gravity's fine. I know other people loved it, but again. I feel like we put him on this level of actors that I don't know if he deserves to be on that list.
You're right. Syriana.
I didn't see that. I don't say this in a weird way, Dex. I like George Clooney. I like him a lot. Yeah. I think he's actually a talented guy. But I think what I'm saying is I think other people have an opinion on what type of what level of actor he is.
You're crazy. I also think just Ocean's 11, 12, and 13 puts him up there for me. I love those movies.
Yeah, I like the first one. All the sequels I wasn't a fan of. I think it just got too weird and it became like Fast and Furious style. Like, okay, who could they fraud this time? It was just getting ridiculous.
I'm into heists. You know that about me. I'm a heist person. Yeah, I'm a heisty kind of man.
He is heist. All right, number 3 or 4?
We are on 3.
3. What's number 3, Dex?
Rob Schneider responding to his daughter Elle King's calling him out of being a bad parent. So this has been a pretty famous situation. Elle King has spoke up numerous times saying that her father was just not around when she was younger, to the point of he's just being a bad dad because he wasn't there. And she grew up, I guess, really resenting him. And so he was actually talking to Tucker Carlson on his podcast, and he owned up to it. He says, I just want to tell my daughter, Elle, I love you. I wish I was the father of my 20s that you needed. And clearly I wasn't. And he then kind of finished up by saying, I completely, basically, forgive me for my shortcomings. I love you completely. I love you entirely. And I want to wish you well and happy with you and your baby, Lucky. So he feels terrible. I'm not saying that recuses him of being a shitty dad throughout her childhood, because it's going to take a lot more than an apology on a Tucker Carlson podcast to do that. But I did like his response of owning up to it. And there wasn't a lot of like, well, you don't understand. My career was so busy and we were doing so many things. That's why, like, none of that came up. And that's what I appreciate in an apology, when you don't sugarcoat it or make excuses and you just like, look, I done fucked up and I should have been there and I wasn't. So
I agree with you. I think what she said, she kind of spoke her opinion, and she's been in the news a little bit because I think what she did that Dolly Parton gig where she did a Dolly Parton song, she was drunk, and she obviously had an issue. And then she spoke about her relationship with her father, which I don't think a lot of people knew. And he sort of addressed it. And he said, "Listen, like he thinks he could have done a better job. You can't knock an apology. He didn't defend himself. He was just like,
he was so bad that she had said that he forgot every single birthday, that she spent her 18th birthday in summer school, and they brought me a cupcake. And when I came home, my dad had forgotten. She said, I put every ounce of my being into my son's birthday because now I know how it feels to be forgotten on your birthday. So she never wanted to be associated with him. It's a really sad situation.
Honestly, I'm not taking Rob Schneider's side by any means, but I respect the way he. No, but I'm saying I respect how he handled it. And what I mean is, like, I hope he's trying to make peace and just do whatever he can besides say what he had to say.
Yeah, I hope it's not just on podcasts that he's talking about. Sure. I hope that he is actively picking up the phone and doing it on a personal level rather than a public level. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what we think. It's what your daughter and your grandson think, you know?
Yeah, no, that's what I was going to mean, 100%. Dax, next story is one story that I think so many people have questions for. I'm getting calls regarding it. Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni. What's the deal here?
So why did this story turn into such a big story this week? But there is allegedly a big feud brewing or has already brewed between Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni. They are the two stars of It Ends With Us. And, you know, the movie just came out. It is all over the place. Blake Lively is, you know, doing all kinds of interviews. But people had noticed that the two stars didn't really want to interact on the red carpet. They didn't want to talk to each other. They failed to do press together. And so people are like, what is happening? It seems like a very uncomfortable and difficult atmosphere that was created on this set. And now a lot of people are blaming Justin for it. He's actually hired a crisis PR person in LA who worked with Amber Heard's team. And I don't know. So here's the thing. As crappy as this may have been, I gotta say, the feud at the end of the day is probably going to drive a lot more interest into this movie, right?
Yeah.
If they're true, like them feuding right now, because this one doesn't scream to me as a fake feud, which I feel like happens a lot of days where people try to strum up publicity. This doesn't feel like that. This feels like genuinely they don't like each other, or things kind of went sour at the end and has caused them a riff. But more people are going to now be interested in this movie because of the drama.
Yeah, this is not a fake feud. However, is this feud being blown out of proportion? Nobody knows. I know some people are taking Justin's side. Some people are taking Blake's side. Some people are trying to defend Blake's character. I think from what I'm hearing, more people are sort of against Blake, saying that she's kind of difficult to work with.
I've heard both of it, though. Like what people I've talked to this week, it's come from both sides. Like, she's not easy to work with. He's not easy to work with. They made it uncomfortable for each other, blah, blah, blah. And at the beginning, they were like thick as thieves, right? Like working on this movie together because he directs it as well. And she's one of the exec producers. And then it like at some point flipped. And you got to remember there's a lot of kissing scenes. There's a lot of like chemistry in this movie. And so now people will be watching this movie to see if there's a change in chemistry from the beginning of the movie to the end of the movie.
Yeah, for them not posing on the red carpet is also weird. I think it's like two very good looking people. Very weird. I think it's weird that she didn't follow him on Instagram. And then I do know from what I was hearing that Justin, I heard this last year when they were filming this movie. And now with these stories coming, I'm like, oh, it kind of makes sense. I didn't know that was a story, but Justin was feeling very stressed out during that time. He was living in Jersey. I think it was in Jersey City. And he was just super stressed out. Now, was he stressed out because of what was going on with Blake? Was he stressed out because he was directing a movie and acting in it? He also had to help fund the movie. I mean, there was different ways where that stress could be from, but he was definitely stressed out when he was making the movie last year. So, but yet again, the movie, which was based on a book, I think was already going to do well. It did have a pretty big budget, so you do have to make up for that money that was, it cost to make the movie. And also the movie's in theaters first, so they want to make their money back in theaters, and then once it goes on a streamer, make some more money there. Again, this is a business, so I'm curious how much money this movie makes. As far as which side we're picking, I think it's just stupid. I think there we go. Dax, the number one story of the week.
There has been multiple arrests in connection to Matthew Perry's death, including one doctor. This all happened this week, and according to TMZ, there were multiple law enforcement agencies that executed a number of search warrants where computers, phones, and other electronic equipment were seized in order to get to the bottom of who supplied Perry with the ketamine that led to his death in October. If you remember, he was found unresponsive in a hot tub in his Los Angeles home back on October 28th and was pronounced dead at the same day. He was 54 at the time. Well, it was later revealed that he received ketamine infusion therapy for anxiety, depression, but had last undergone a treatment a week and a half before his death. So the ketamine that was found in Perry's system was not doctor prescribed. So that was what really prompted the whole investigation from both local and federal authorities. Law enforcement authorities say that there was a broad underground criminal network that was responsible for supplying him with ketamine that led to his death. 2 medical doctors, Perry's live-in assistant, and someone referred to as the ketamine queen have been charged with illegally conspiring to provide the drug to him. So authorities say that the 5 defendants all knew Perry that he was in the throes of addiction from September 2023 to the time of his death, but cared more about making money off of him than his well-being. And I'm like, yeah, of course. I mean, they're drug dealers at the end of the day, right? So I guess one of the defendants sent an email at some point, and it literally said this, quote unquote, "I wonder how much this moron will pay for ketamine." And then Perry's assistant, the guy's name was Kenneth, allegedly administered more than 20 shots of ketamine in the last 4 days of Perry's life. And he knew that Perry was, quote unquote, spiraling out of control. The lady that is being referred to as the queen of the ketamine queen, she allegedly sold the fatal dose when they went to search her home. I guess it looked like a drug emporium. 80 vials of ketamine, thousands of meth pills, coke, Xanax, and other drug paraphernalia. And then there was a guy named Eric, who was the drug broker who delivered the ketamine from the stash house to Perry's assistant. He actually threw in a couple ketamine lollipops as an add-on for the large purchase. What are you going to say? Yeah.
No, that's insane.
Yeah, it's wild. And so here is the update. But basically, Matthew Perry's assistant, Kenneth, and Eric, that the guy who delivered I believe that prosecutors say that helped out the broker and the drug deals allegedly copped plea deals so far. And according to new legal docs, they pled guilty to conspiracy to distribute ketamine resulting in death and serious bodily injury. And they pled a couple to other charges, conspiracy to distribute and distribution and all of this kind of stuff. And so his assistant is looking up to 15 years behind bars. And while that Eric guy, the distribution guy, was looking at about 25 years in prison. But the exchange for their plea agreements, prosecutors have agreed to seek reduced sentences based on their knowledge and responsibility and cooperation with the investigation. So this story definitely not going anywhere. We'll want to hear what happens to this ketamine queen, the doctor. Is he going to get his license revoked? All kinds of stuff. So
it's hard being a doctor for celebrities because, in my opinion, you want to have that relationship with a celebrity. You want to be friends with them, and of course they. Sometimes they want a little bit more, and they push the limit, and
they're using you.
They're using you.
You will ruin your life.
Yeah, this is a bad. Do you feel? I shouldn't say you feel bad, but Dax, when you hear all the information going on, do you think the assistant is really like, what? Is the assistant getting screwed in all this because they're just doing their job a little bit? But at what point is it? Tough. Are they feeding into it and it's like their boss? I don't know how that works.
Yeah, so I feel like you have a better point with that than the doctor. The doctors are dumbasses if they are going to bend over backwards and provide drugs for this celebrity. They're not your friends. They're using you to get the drugs at the end of the day. that could lead to you losing your license and ruining your entire career. So like, just know that if it's not you, they're going to go ask another doctor. Don't be the dumbass that gives them the drugs, right? We've seen it time and time again. In regards to the assistant, that's a tough situation because this is your boss who's telling you, I just need some ketamine. Go find me some ketamine, pick it up here, inject me, whatever you got to do. Like, I feel like they're, less culpable, but the guy could have quit, but at the same note,
when your back's against the wall, it's a tough situation for the assistant. I did some stuff, not anything like that, but I think I had a job where I did some stuff that probably I normally wouldn't do, but when they're kind of pressing you, you sort of do it because I think it's easy. And you want to lose it.
Yeah, it's easy to fall into the trap, unfortunately, is what it really comes down to. It's easy to get in over your head, and it's easy to look back and be like, I shouldn't have done that. But like, it all just happens so quickly, and next thing you know, I was giving him injections because that's what he wanted, and it sucks that this guy could potentially be in a lot of trouble, and he was doing what his boss said.
Yeah. All right. That is our raw rundown, the top 10 stories of the week. Thank you guys for watching. If you're watching on Red Coral, you should check out Red Coral. It's a very cool streaming site. They have a cool setup for us. They help us out a lot, and they've been good to us. We're also on YouTube as well. Follow us on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. We are on every social media platform. Facebook, we have a private Facebook group called Off the Record. You should be in it. It's a really fun community. Follow me at Adam Glyn. Follow Dax Holt at Dax Holt. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Guys, hope you liked that video. We got a lot more where that came from.
Hit that bell, like, subscribe, share with a friend. The best thing you do to support us is really doing that. And we really need the money because we need hair gel.